West, y'all.
So Greg, yeah, you grew up out South Auckland.
Yeah. Still alive.
Real hard.
Yeah, still alive.
You went to James Cook.
Yeah.
James Cook is famous for all sorts of things.
Yeah.
How was it? How was James Cook when you were there?
To be honest, I've got a bit of a slouch, a bad walk, because you would always look at the ground. You wouldn't make eye contact because it was rough as guts.
Yeah.
I mean, the first 2 years was pretty bad. And after that, those bad kids start dropping out and things get a bit better. But yeah, man, it was a struggle. Like how we talk about PTSD. I got a lot of revenge fantasies that I'd love to meet that guy again. I'd love to meet that guy again. I'd smash the shit out of him, sort of thing, if I could. But again, with my work and social work,
yeah,
you realize that those kids got beaten up at home. They came to school, they can't, and then they take their anger out on whoever they can, and that was, a lot of other people at school. Some geek with glasses and holding a comic book. Fucking think you're Superman. But I mean, yeah. So life is that. But I mean, yeah, JC was rough as guts. So, yeah. I mean, if you got out with anything, it was a good thing. But again, it taught me a lot about life. Like when I travelled around the world, not a lot of people could steal from me because you could sort of see in their eyes that they're a thief and the way they're acting, the same as back at high school. Like, you're going to try and steal something. So I thought it taught me a lot of good skills. Lucky not to get a police record, but I mean, yeah. JC, real hard.
So you finished school out there. You did university, and then you lived in Japan for what, 10 years?
17.
17 years? Oh.
Yeah.
10 years was too short.
Yeah. Double that. No. So, yeah.
Oh, man, like, was it the case of you going there and just loving it, and then next minute 17 years goes by?
Well, I mean, after high school, I went and did a building course. And back in those days, as soon as you drew down on your student loan, you were paying interest. So it started going up straight away. And then I did building. Didn't like it. There were too many dodgy guys. So then I went back. One of my friends' dad said, "Oh, why don't you go back?" I always thought you should go to university. So that was, again, just those one word, that little inspiration. So I went and enrolled at Auckland Uni and did that and completed it. At the end of it, I had about a 40 grand loan after a total of 5 years of study. And I saw an advertisement that had said, like people had said that you go overseas and you can pay off your loan. And they had said it was Japan or Korea. And so I applied for Japan and for Korea. And my interview for Korea, teaching English in Korea, was in the back of down at a liquor store on Queen's Arcade. And I just went in, and then the lady's like, "Oh, come out the back." And she goes, "Oh, you have friend who have degree, you go." And I was just like, "Okay, is this the interview?" And she goes, yeah. And then my interview for Japan was in the consulate. So,
okay.
like wearing a suit and everything. It was all prim and proper. So, it was pretty easy which one to choose.
Yeah.
So Japan got the nod. But
sure,
yeah.
was it North Korea, the one you were
right? It might be target practice. So went over there and that was awesome. I mean, it was hard for the first year because again, I was in a little village with only 2,500 people. Nobody, maybe about 3 people spoke English, and even then it's American English, which is a lot different to, New Zealand English. So again, having to get through the culture shock and the language barrier and everything, and just different way of life. But after a bit, it was really good. Like, yeah, you just stuck at it, and we would love to go back. My kids wouldn't, but they've just got a different way of life. Just clean eating, just a lot. It's a lot better than New Zealand. But in saying that, New Zealand has a lot of different ways that are a lot better than Japan, sort of thing. Everything has its pluses and minuses, sort of thing.
You're living out in the rural parts of Japan where you guys were, like not in the big cities like Tokyo.
No.
Like how was a big difference
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean,
besides the obvious?
yeah, I mean, it reminded me a lot of New Zealand. Like, we were just outside of the city. I think our city had 1 million people, and we lived maybe, 30-minute bike ride, so about 10 k's out of the downtown. But again, Japanese people are quite racist, but once they know you and you're there, then you're like family, and they'll just take care of you and they'll do everything for you. It kind of reminds me a lot like Polynesian families sort of thing, in terms of they'll just take real good care of you. You know, the old lady that lived above us would always come down, and she would have cooked like a big pot of food and she would give it to us, sort of thing. So it was really cool to be in that reciprocal kind of community. We'd go up and we'd give her food and that, and so yeah, it was real cool just to show the kids that even though people aren't your family, you know, the community is a really strong thing. So no, it was awesome.
So were you just working at the local school where you guys were?
Yeah, so after I went over on a program called the JET program, and then I got fired from that.
Why? What did you do?
I don't know. Before we went over, the people had said there's no way you can get fired. And so I was like, well, hold my beer. And I bumped heads with, they were just real, again, you know, they're from the country, the real old school and what they would do. And it just wouldn't work. So I like skateboarding. So one of the things I did when I got there is I bought a skateboard and I was skating, and then I got pulled into the principal's office with my supervisor, and they're like, Greg, you know, people said they saw you skateboarding. I was like, yeah. And they're like, bad people skateboard. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, yeah, so we would like you to stop skateboarding. And I'm just like, no, my time. What I want to do is what I want to do. And kind of stuff like that like, I don't think I really appreciated the standing a teacher has, and in particular a foreign teacher in Japan had, sort of thing. And so for me it was a learning curve. Like I grew up, a lot of my maturing over there was, you know, through trial and error, and so we just bumped heads, and I really didn't appreciate it. I remember the lady, we were in a teaching housing unit, so there was maybe, you know, about 3 houses in an area, and the lady next door just they moved in, and they used to just get pissed off at me for everything. And their house was sort of in the middle, so it was kind of like a roundabout. So if you drove in the driveway, you could drive around their house and then you could drive back out. So that's what a lot of us would do. We'd drive around it, and then we would just park our cars out the front. And they obviously didn't like it, so they started putting pot plants along the driveway, so you couldn't no longer do that. And then I would burn my rubbish in an incinerator, and then she started getting pissed off about that because, you know, she said she's pregnant, and the fumes. And I'm like, dude, it's like way away from you. So I got real pissed off. And then one day, so they were out, and so I just booted all their pot plants over and kicked it. And then I was actually in the toilet, and they came over, and I heard them out front, and they're like, oh, maybe the wind blew it over. And they came, knocked on the door, and my wife had to answer the door, and they're like, oh, did you see the pot plants all blew over? And she's like, oh, did they? And she's like, yeah, it must have been the wind. And then my wife was like, next time they come to the door, you're going to answer it. So I was just like, yeah. But
I think I understand that a little bit, because I think got some older family members who are like that. And like, it's like, it's not, you think in your head it's not affecting anyone. But I think it's just them just thinking that you're doing it, not seeing it, just annoys them, and they say, "Oh, please don't do that." So I'm thinking about it.
Well, I mean, yeah, they because in Japan they have the wa, which is like it's like everybody knows what not to do and what to do, and so if you can imagine, like if you imagine just a nice bowl of water, and basically it's calm, but then you drop a stone in it and it makes a ripple, and they don't like that. And so that stone was me, and so it was sort of like, and I was just too dumb, and just I didn't really care as well, because again, you know, this is who I am. And if a lot of people they go over there, and a lot of the foreigners that go over and they conform, and they sort of take on this, you know, you'd be like, dude, you wouldn't do that back home. But, you know, you sort of, I don't know, like I found, I used to laugh and say it was like a POW camp and that you're not going to break me sort of thing. And so, so I don't know, I just used it as sort of like a game and that, and just made sure it was fun, because at the end of the day, you only live once. So.
Yeah.
So yeah, but
I guess that's what I was trying to say in my question, like the difference between town and these rural areas. I guess for me, like hearing that story, it just tells me maybe the rural areas are more traditional, more sensitive to things they don't not really understand, or things that are foreign to them. Where if you think about, we were talking about World War II before, like Japan, they lost, but they're one country that sort of embraced the American pop culture, you know, it's like straight away almost.
Yeah,
you know?
and that's that. And that's
with the cosplay and all that stuff.
Well, that's why it's quite funny, because you go over there and the first question you ever get is, "Are you American?" And then when you say no, that they sort of like, "Oh, that's good," because again, you know, they've got that whole culture of they lost the war to America. That's how they think of it, and they were they more or less colonized, because I mean they changed so much. They changed the education system. You know, before the war, doctors would go to Germany to study, and so they could speak German, because a lot of their medical books were written in German, sort of thing. But again, after the war, everything changed to English, and so yeah, it is kind of sad, because again, it's that American culture that creeps in and takes over, sort of thing. But no, it was a blast. We'd always just laugh, you know, because if you go into the country, deeper in the country you go, ding 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 ding. Sure got a pretty mouth. But yeah, no, it was a blast.
Did you ever like understand what you were doing before, and so like obviously you understand now?
Yeah,
but when did you like start thinking, okay, better?
I think I always knew I was doing the wrong thing, but at the same time, for me, it was kind of funny to do it. But yeah, I remember they couldn't. I
mean, they let you stay for 17 years. So.
Well, I mean, I only worked at that one for the JET program for 2 years, but I guess it was a lot of things, you know, when you get problems. So we'd be in the morning, they would have in the staff room, they'd have their morning meeting, and it would all be in Japanese, and my Japanese wasn't good enough at that stage to understand what they were doing. So naturally, you've got 2 English teachers, and one was sitting next to me, so you would think they would translate for you. And so I would say, I'm not really interested in this because I don't understand what's going on. Could you translate for me? And they'd do it for one day, and then after that, they just wouldn't do it anymore. So then I just started listening to my music, and it was quite loud on my headphones.
Yeah.
And so I think they started to get a bit pissed off at that, understandably. But again, for me, I saw a problem, asked for the solution. They didn't give it to me, so I was sort of like, well, what do you want me to do? Like, it's sort of a bit. So the principal eventually sent me over to the Board of Education, and so I'd have to start going there. And then they had a time card that they would want me to check in and then check out. But of course, if you're a few minutes late, it shows up on the card. So then what I'd do is I'd rip it up and throw it in the rubbish bin, or I'd throw it away, and they'll be like, "Oh, Greg-san, you know, your time card's gone." I'm like, "Oh, shoot, really?" And they're, "Oh, it's all right, we got you a new one." I was, "Oh, thank you." And, as soon as, again, I'm late for one day or something by a few minutes, I'm like, "Oh, that's there. I'll rip that up and go and hide it," sort of thing. They're like, "Oh, it's gone again." I'm like, "Oh, holy shit. What's happening?" So, again, you know, I'm just like, this is kind of weird, like. And after I had that fight with the teacher about the burning my rubbish, you know, the next day my supervisor brings me into the room and he says, "Here's the rubbish schedule," because no one had ever given me a rubbish schedule of where to put my rubbish. So I didn't know. So I was just like, "Oh, stuff it, I'll just burn it." And I was like, oh, is this because that lady complained? And, oh, no. And I was just like, oh, okay. So they've got a thing called tatemai, which is saving face. So it's just you know, so that's what they would do. They can't admit the truth. So they'll just lie to the black and blue in the face. And so I was like, no, I think it's because I had that fight yesterday with the lady in my compound. And they're like, no. It's just a coincidence. And I'm like, pretty sure. So again, you know, by them lying to me, I was like, well, I don't trust you, but them wanting to preserve that. So I was just like, oh, okay. But so again, it's just really interesting, all the different cultural things that you'd experience.
I don't know the name of that saving face thing. The tatsumai.
Yeah.
Because that is a big deal.
Oh yeah. I mean, you give them any food, and they'll say it's delicious because they can't give their true feeling, which is hone, which is what you actually feel. That it's, you know, again, it's the wa, which is what you have to preserve, and so you can't give your actual feeling, sort of thing. Because to be honest, if they did say what they want them to feel, it wouldn't be good. Like, that's why they've got a lot of structure around their society, and they have to perform in a certain way, and if it broke down, they would just go to crap, sort of thing.
I think that's kind of like New Zealand culture as well. We have a little bit of that. We're too scared to say this is bad or nah, we don't like this.
But then again, I mean, I can see it firsthand with my work in terms of now you've given too much freedom to the young people, and now there's no way you can not control them, but get them to do what they should be doing, and so it's gone the other way. So it's a real. That's why I can see the benefit of both things. Again, in New Zealand, you know, normally the husband or the man and the woman, they will work. You know, you and your partner will work because there's no way around it. In Japan, it's still very traditional in terms of if you get married and have a kid, the wife will stop working and just the man will be the breadwinner. So, I mean, that was kind of cool because it reminded me of growing up in the 80s. Like, you know, mum would be at home and dad would be at work, sort of thing. Whereas now your grandparents are having to step in to look after the kids because, you know, or they have to look after themselves because you can't get by on one income.
Yeah, that's right. That's the economic thing. And is it that good in Japan that they still can do that?
I think it is good in a way, but at the same time, it's more, there's not much inflation. So I was there for 17 years. I think a can of Coke was maybe $2, and by the time I left, it was $2.15. So it had only gone up by a real little. So the inflation was just hardly there. But, so no, it was really good. And I mean, again, you know, good food. Healthy food, so it was really good. You know, a good amount of vegetables. That's the biggest thing I've noticed coming back here. In New Zealand, we get a big, huge bit of meat, some potatoes, and a little bit of vegetables. Whereas the other way around, you know, you get a lot of vegetables and then a little bit of meat. So it was really good.
I was gonna say.
Just got a Costco that opened over there, so now we've got one here, so I'm just not looking forward to that.
Oh, did you get a Costco over there in Japan?
Yeah.
Opened while you guys were there?
No, it just opened after we left.
Oh, okay.
So I was just laughing because I went and joined the one up Westgate.
Yeah. Have you been to Costco before, overseas?
Yeah. It's
I
amazing.
went to the one in Honolulu.
Oh, yeah.
And that was my first experience with Costco, and it was so amazing. Like, man, $1.50 hot dogs, $1.50 the Sal's, you know, Sal's pizza?
Oh, yeah.
Like $1.50 for a whole pizza.
Right.
I was like, what?
It's crazy.
You know, the alcohol, like, cheaper than duty free.
I don't remember getting alcohol. We had bulgogi, which is like a Korean meat roll in Japan, but I'm not sure again if that's...
Is that the red meat?
No, it's like I don't even know how to describe it. But yeah, it's really good. But I remember the big, huge pizzas. You know, get sliced and get the refills, free refills.
Yeah, refills. And with hot dogs, you get the sauerkraut.
Yeah.
On the...
And just like,
yeah.
winding it on. So no, it's...
See, that's something that if they have that over here in the Westgate Costco, the sauerkraut, wonder how good that's gonna go. 'Cause that's a ingredient that's not really well known over here. Like, but it's yum, man.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing what it looks like.
Yeah.
Again, if it brings down the prices and Countdown and Pack and Save, then it's got to be good.
I think the gas is really real cheap.
Yeah,
Like,
it was $2.46 when it went up, so it was maybe about 30 or 40 cents cheaper than at the pump. So that's the main reason why I got the membership.
When you got the membership, because I remember when I was on the paper, like when they were first announcing you can come get your memberships, it was long lines.
Yeah, I think it took about 30 minutes. And
was there still a line when you went? Oh, did you go when one of the first lines?
No, I went on Saturday, just on Saturday.
Yeah.
So there was still a line for about 30 minutes, and you got to take a proof of address and photo ID.
Okay.
So it was lucky. Yeah.
Pretty hard out,
Yeah.
For the cheap deals.
Yeah.
But it's good though. We need some competition, especially with the prices going up.
Right.
Especially with supermarkets and that. Did you hear about the Countdown? They were like saying like, oh, because understand the prices are going up, we're gonna hold our prices from now. But that's after they've put it up.
Right.
It's like what?
I've always wanted the government to take the GST off fruit and vegetables because again, what a bottle of water is like $2 and a bottle of like fizzy drinks $1.50 or something. So it's like, well, what one are you going to grab when you're in the supermarket? Like, it's just a hard choice, and same with all the crappy food sort of thing.
Well, that GST off of that cutting GST off of vegetables always comes up during elections.
Yeah.
But
never happens.
Never happens.
No. It's quite interesting. It'll be cool to actually talk to them, the ministers, and to see what's stopping them. Because I think originally, from the little information I've seen, is that they said it would be quite hard to define, what then becomes, is potato chips. Is that a vegetable? You know what I mean? But they use these real extreme examples. But I mean, if a family could afford to get fruit and vegetables, they would. It would make so much more sense, sort of thing.
As a social worker, 'cause you working in social work, like, does that ever come up? How we were talking about how kids these days, how they, how they are, and that cycle, their poverty cycle.
Yep.
Like it's always, like I feel sorry for social workers because all they're doing is they're putting a band-aid, I feel, over something that needs a deeper attention. Like something from the right at the beginning. Yeah. Like stopping that cycle. Yeah. Like you talked about before on the podcast, how kids get beaten up and then they come to school and take it on the other kids and bully the other kids. Like, it's not trying to teach this kid to stop doing it, but it's to look at where it comes from. Yeah.
But I mean, there's so many things you can do to try and stop it, but it also depends on the individual themselves, like at what stage of the day or, where are they in their journey that they actually want to stop and have a look at themselves. And, you get a lot of preachy kind of people that are saying you need to do this, but if you're like, well, how does it feel to walk in my shoes? Does that, can I actually do that? Can I stop and actually, can I get off meth? Because, a lot of people think that meth is just like a coffee addiction. Can you stop it? Well, no. And then you got to look at who the people are associating with, like who's in your circle. Like if everyone's smoking meth, you look like a bit of a loser, or do you think you're better than us if you don't smoke it? So a lot of those sort of things come into play. So it is a big struggle. And again, you've got people saying, like negative things. It's just a super hard journey. So I've got nothing but admiration for people who have been able to pull themselves out of that hole sort of thing. And
is that, as a social worker, the goals are to try and pull them out or try to plant a seed into someone to understand that they need to get out of that cycle?
I don't know. Like I think every social worker has a different outlook on what they're doing and how they're trying to do it. I know a lot of people set themselves up to fail because they think they can try and save that person. I look at it as if, again, me trying to walk in their footsteps to see what the struggles are for their day-to-day life and just to sort of be there for them. Like you can try and, again, you can take that horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And I look at it as if maybe in 5 years' time, they look back and they say, oh, that was a shitty year, but I got through it. And, this is where I'm better, sort of thing. And maybe Greg helped me to do that, or he didn't push me like other people. So a lot of people come in and they're quite preachy, and they try and think, you should do this, you should do that. But again, they don't have, the client's perspective, or they don't have that lens. So it's really, it's a really, really hard job. It can be satisfying, but at the same time, you're either getting it in one ear from management, and you're getting it in the other ear from the client, sort of thing. So it's a really hard line to walk.
So as a social worker, that hard line to walk, are you allowed to deviate if you feel like this is what I think will work? Because I understand now a little bit about what I'm dealing with that maybe management don't understand. Because this is the case of, because I've had mental health nurses on talk about how management don't have any, like, they don't know what's going on in the field. I mean, they have all these theories and all these things. This is what you're supposed to do. This is what we studied. This is what the results were. This is how we're going to tackle it. We use our degrees on this shit. And this is what you guys have to do. But the guys are out in the field, they sometimes see something different. Yeah,
I think unfortunately a lot of things is you've got to bring your life experience. So me living in Japan, I have a lot of empathy for people who can't read or write, because a lot of times I would go to my, say to the council or to the bank, and I would need to fill out a form, but I could not read what I was supposed to do, and I could not write as well. And so you would have to rely on someone seeing that you're lost. And quite often there was a lot of people there, let's just say 10 people, and maybe 2 people could see, oh, this guy, does he actually know what he's doing? And one person would have the courage to come up and say, are you okay? And then I would say, well, no, actually, I need to do this. And then they would be like, oh, here, let me help you. So a lot of my work now in social work is a lot of people have that pride, the tatemai, which is the pride, and they say, oh yeah, I'll do it. And I'm like, do you actually know how to do it though? Like, because I'm here to help you. Let's sit down, let's fill this form out now so you don't forget about it, and then I can go and hand it in. And they're like, oh, okay. And then you just fill it out with them, and you're not expecting them. And again, you don't judge, because again, that's the hardest thing. These people have been judged their whole life, and if you go ahead and do that again, you're just re-victimizing them, sort of thing. So again, you've got to go in and I'm just there to help them and just walk alongside them, sort of thing. And it's more or less just passing no real judgment on them. But again, management, it's really hard because they've got people above them that are saying we need results, so then they're saying to you need results. But again, if you can justify what you're doing and you're getting the results, then the results speak for themselves, sort of thing. So if a family turns around and say that you did a good job, then for me that's a really good thing, and you can take it. But it is a really unthankful job, because no one's ever going to be saying thanks for helping me get off my pee habit, sort of thing. It's more or less, you're a dick, sort of thing. And so, you don't get much praise. But again, you just got to know that, often there's support, and your colleagues are your main support thing, sort of thing. And then you just bounce off them, sort of thing. But the burnout rate is terrible. So I think it's 18 months in my job is the burnout rate.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm up to, I think I've been there 14 months now. So coming up to...
So 18 months or average
Yep.
burnout rate, and that's documented.
Pretty much.
So when people get the job, I expect 18 months to...
Well,
18 months is the average burnout rate for you.
Yep.
So any support for people like you, like when you get up to the 18 month?
No, but I mean...
around that time?
I mean, again, I think it's a lot of it is your own resilience and what you've bought. And again, if you're trying to change someone, you're not going to have much good results. But if you're walking alongside them and you're trying to put in different services that you trust and that are good, there's going to be more chance of engagement, and so it takes the pressure off you. So there's a lot of good services out there, but it's a matter of finding how they fit, or tailoring them to your clients. Because again, it's no good having a Chinese service with a Samoan family, because again, the culture gap is there. So again, you have to match them up with the right people, and you have to know what they're about and buy into it, sort of thing. So yeah, it's a lot like just imagining cooking a meal. Like if your mum shows you how to do it, then you're more likely to be able to do it. If you're reading from a book, it might be kind of hard. If you don't have the ingredients, well, what are you going to do, sort of thing. So it's really just a matter of having everyone on the same waka and the same thing.
I think recently the government's announced putting billions of dollars into mental health again. That's been the story and the criticism of the government, that they spend a lot of money on mental health and the results are still the same. I mean, to hear like the 18-month burnout average, there's a reflection of, man, out in the field, we're getting our ass kicked.
Well, I mean, it's with mental health, it's always such a hard thing to measure, because if you're getting the support that you need, you won't necessarily, it's not a box you can sort of tick. And so it's only the ones that you fail that, it's in hindsight that you look at things. So it is, I do understand it is a really hard thing, and it's not something you can really measure. Like, so I would always just say, any critic can look at it and just say, well, what have you done? And so you can't really show too much that you have done, sort of thing. So I really, it's a no-win situation, but again, it is really needed, and the more talking you can do and the more awareness you can raise, the more people you can save, sort of thing. So yeah.
And I guess things have gone worse now with those ram raids happening around the place. It just attacked just ram raided the dairy up top there.
It's again
up in the corner there.
Yeah.
And these are kids, like 12 years old.
Yep.
Like,
there's no repercussions. What can the parents do?
I see a couple of weeks ago, the Hamilton.
Oh,
like
yeah.
8, 11, 12-year-old kids ram raided, and they got caught with toys in their hand.
Yeah. Again, what's the repercussions? What happens now? Like, I mean, there's not much that can be done. So it's this is how we've gone on our track in New Zealand, and where has that gotten us, sort of thing, because it doesn't take much for kids to switch on, and with social media the word spreads that this is what you can do, and what's going to happen. Pretty much nothing.
And that's one of the things they were saying, like, it's social media as well.
Yeah.
Like you said, the kids see it and they want to do it too. But it was also like we're coming out of the lockdowns. And so kids like hardly going to school.
Yeah, yep.
There's no engagement with teachers, and the 2 years we've been on lockdown and stuff. So that's a factor too. So what are the kids doing? What are the parents doing?
Yeah. Again, it's how do you engage with the youth? What do you do, like, that makes them want to do what not what they're supposed to, but just what you want. What you aim for them to do, sort of thing, and that's having to tailor everything around them, sort of thing. So, yeah, it's a really, really hard situation.
Is it hard? Because let's just say here's the ram raids, right? No one saw this coming. So this is something that let something slip, or just can't be helped, or just one of those things along with social media just makes it worse.
No, I think it's like anything. These kids know how to steal a car. They know what car to steal. Let's do this. And then, these kids are smart. Like any kid, you start thinking bigger and bigger and bigger. And then, what's next, sort of thing. And that's what you're getting now is, this is the what's next, the what if, what if we do this? What if we do that? Like, well, what happened there? We didn't get in trouble. No, okay, well, let's go one more. Let's go one more. So it's just going to increase. So I'm not too sure what will happen. I've got ideas on what should happen, but I'm not too sure what will happen.
What are some of your ideas? Come on.
I don't know. Again, when you're talking about people who offend, you get the old white person that says chuck 'em in a cell. Sure, that might work for, say, 5 out of 10 people. But then you've got to look at, marae justice. You've got to look at restorative justice. So there's a whole whole different, you get 10 people that do the same crime, they're not all going to respond to the same punishment. So you've got to hope that whoever's evaluating what they've done and what their crime should be, that it should benefit them as well. Like how do you not make them reoffend? And then that's what you should be really looking at, trying to tailor each person's sentence according to what they're going to respond to. I know a lot of people, doing hard time, like hitting rocks. It's good for them because again, it's getting their frustrations out, and they're actually doing something, and they can see that there's something they've accomplished. Some people, you put them into a reading program and they've never been able to read before, but again, that's giving them, a little bit more mana, a little bit more self-esteem to something that they've never had before. So you've shown them that they've accomplished something. So there's just so many different things that need to be looked at. But again, you go back to that same old white man that's just chuck them inside, and a lot of these people have been institutionalized. You put them inside forever. There they've got rules, and they've got a schedule, and they've got a roof over their head. They've got 3 meals a day. They're safe. You take them out, you've suddenly taken them out of their safe environment. The first thing they want, they don't know what to do. They offend, and they go straight back in. But that's where they're happy, sort of thing. So, growing up, I thought, shit, I never want to go to prison. But then you start to think about what their life has been like, like don't know where they're living, don't know where their food's coming from, and then you actually do put them in prison, and then suddenly they've got a schedule, and they've got safety, and they know the rules, and so, they've got everything they really need that they didn't get in society. So, yeah, it's really interesting. You'll never get that right answer in terms of, someone's always going to dict the system. Someone's, they're not going to do what they're supposed to, but at the same time, at least you're giving an option, and if you can save a few people, then that's the main thing.
It's interesting how you say, like, different people respond to different things, and that's I think that's true in a lot of cases, because that's where I think that's the way society is going anyway, even with this PC culture, like even with kind of offending certain people, like, or like just
the
woke people, like that's the extreme part of it. Yeah. But it's also talking to people, that conservative people, that hey, sometimes the old ways won't work now. You gotta, like it's the old, like ADHD, kids with ADHD, right? Like, see, we might not understand how they work, and they probably need. It's probably a certain way to let them understand, but we don't do it because we're not used to that way.
Yeah.
So, and the problem is identifying what that is, but we don't know.
Well, it was cool because I listened to a podcast. I don't normally listen to podcasts apart from this one, but it was about a gangster in Sydney, I think, in Australia, and he said he had bad ADHD, but he said how he overcame it was he was in his cell and he drew a spiral circle on the wall, and so he would just focus on that, and he'd train his brain to focus, and so because he said it was running everywhere, but he just trained himself to focus. So again, I always think it's something maybe we can correct, but at the same time we're so quick in the Western culture to suddenly, like, let's just put drugs in your body and let's just suppress it, sort of thing. Let's not actually look at what's causing it, but let's just drug you up, sort of thing. So, but then you go to the other extreme, which is in Japan, and you've got kids who definitely have high needs, and they're all in the same class as another kid, and they're just kicking off and disturbing all the class. But it's like, oh no, the kid's just a little bit, happy, and you're just like, no, they should be in a different class, so this class can learn, and that other kid can learn, on his own, sort of thing. Because again, it's just disrupting the whole thing. So yeah.
Japan have the same problems?
Oh yeah,
problems or different?
They deal with it differently though. Again, there's a big, again, it's just like the 80s. There's a big stigma around kids who have special needs or handicap, and so I taught at a Catholic girls' school, and there was a girl who was in a wheelchair who wasn't verbal, couldn't walk or anything, and her parents were too embarrassed to send her to a special school. So they begged the principal for him to put her in there. So for 3 years, the girl had to be in there. And again, our school was not handicap facilitated. So again, it was a struggle for the teachers to help get her to the toilet, help her sort of thing. Whereas again, a special school would have catered for everything, but the parents were embarrassed.
So is that the saving face?
Yeah,
again?
yep. So again, it was just. But for me, I mean, you see this girl, and she's definitely handicapped because she's in a wheelchair, and she can't. She's not verbal. She's dribbling and everything like that. But again, because her parents didn't want that stigma, so I'm just like, oh.
That's probably a good analogy of what I was trying to say. Like how people say, like someone that needs different sort of understanding, a way to understand things.
Yeah,
and we don't get it.
Yeah,
like he's the guy in the wheelchair in the room that we don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Again, that's that cool thing for me. Again, living in a different culture in Japan just gave me a different appreciation of life in New Zealand, and how maybe I would have been the same as a lot of other people, judging people like, why can't you read? We all learn to read. Whereas in Japan, quite a few people would say, well, you've been in Japan for a long time. Why didn't you learn to read? And it's because I was more interested in making my comic, more interested in training, more interested in watching TV. I didn't want to be studying, all the time sort of thing. So that wasn't an interest. But again, it's, at the end of the day, it is my fault. But yeah, different people judge.
Yeah. You forgot kickboxing.
Yeah, I mean, that was always good fun. And so, yeah.
Let's talk about that. I mean, were you ever into fighting before Japan? Or?
Well, see, I always wanted to do kickboxing, but again, because I came from a rough school, my thinking was that the bullies would be there and they would just beat me up, which is not right. But at the same time, when you have that fear when you're little, or when I was young, is that you just don't know what it's going to be like. And again, so yeah, I just used to do all my fighting in rugby.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it wasn't until I went over to Japan that I actually thought, I'll have a try and everything. So yeah.
Did you play American football as well? You played Ranui as well. Did you play rugby over there in Japan?
Yeah, just for an amateur club and everything. Again, we weren't. Our city wasn't too famous for sports, so to speak. So a lot of people that Japan's a huge place. Everyone lives in Tokyo, Osaka, and we've got different companies in our city. So a lot of them would get transferred there, and they'd be there for 1 or 3 years, and then they would go straight back home. So there were never not too many long-termers, and there was no professional teams there. But yeah, I played rugby and American football, so that was cool fun. And then I just went into kickboxing and MMA. So yeah.
So how'd you get into that? Like, how long was your first trainings up to your first fight?
Oh, it was terrible. I think it was quite a bit because I had to cut some weight, and so it was. Yeah, my coach was kind of like the old school, not like Mr. Miyagi from Karate Kid, but he was old school. He wouldn't just chuck you in. Like there's a few other like dojos or gyms that you want to fight? Yep, we'll chuck you in and just throw you into the deep end. But my coach was just like, nah, you need to be at a certain level before you can go on because you're going to embarrass us. So yeah, so it was pretty cool.
And how many fights did you have?
Ooh.
So what's your record?
To be honest, I can't really remember. I think I did. So yeah, I can't. I didn't have a lot because I was still playing rugby and I would get injured. But I know I won 2 titles in our the bottom half of Japan. So I had 2 titles for Muay Thai and kickboxing there, and then I won our the island MMA amateur MMA fight there, and then I went up to Tokyo to do the All Japan, and I won that. And then I was like, you've got UFC, and then there's like one championship. I'm not sure if you heard of that, but that's more of the Asia UFC version. And so they were going to sign me for their like what would you call it, a fledgling, like the undercard for that, which is it's called punk class, and so that I would have gone pro in that. But again, COVID hit and we were supposed to come home, so I said no thanks. But I mean, when I fought my championship, the pros were coming in to fight after, and I just saw them. They just looked like monsters, like just your ears all, cauliflowered up, and just, I don't know how many brain cells they had going around, but it didn't look like there were many. So I sort of just looked at them and said, "Oh yeah, no." I'd like to do this, but yeah. So no, it was cool fun. I mean, again, any discipline that pushes you to do the best you can is always good. Like, I mean, I think I was 75 kgs, so I had to lose like 10 kgs, and so actually like monitoring all the food you eat and dieting and just making sure you're all like tip-top shape was really good fun, sort of thing. So yeah,
doesn't sound like fun.
Well, I mean, once you get used to it, it is really cool, and then you do notice how much bad food you put into your body and what that costs you, sort of thing. But again, yeah, you're right. You do say, well, is this worth it? But then again, a lot of people's problems, I think, in New Zealand and around the world are caused from our food. Like, the different chemicals that are in it, the amount of sugar we're eating. I mean, you look at the diabetes amongst everybody, it's really bad. So again, we've got no real... Again, that GST on the food, on the fruit and vegetables, is stopping us from eating fruit and vegetables. If it was a lot cheaper, I'm pretty sure most mum and dads would be reaching for a bunch of bananas or grapes or something like that. But again, you don't really. So
yeah, it's different, Because we talked about how in New Zealand both parents have to work, and who's gonna cook? When you're tired coming back from work, and it's easy to just go to takeaways and get something to eat,
And again, it's not good for you, sort of thing. So, what are you putting in your body, and how is your body supposed to function on that kind of food, sort of thing? Like, you don't put, I don't know, like say, diesel in a petrol car because it's not what it runs on, sort of thing. So, why would you put that in your body, sort of thing? So again, coming back to New Zealand, it's really made me see how much bad food we eat, and how it's not accessible, the good food, sort of thing. So, but I mean, Japan's set up like totally different in terms of their culture and everything. So yeah.
Have you ever done fasting?
No, but I mean, like with anything, with when I was training to lose that 10 kgs for my fight, I would eat. The good thing about teaching, I was teaching like 6 hours a day, and so there was 50 minutes and then a 10-minute break. So after every class, I'd come back to my seat and I'd be eating like half an apple, and then the next class I'd eat the rest of the apple, and then after the next class I'd eat a carrot. So you're making your meals a lot smaller, so it's easier to digest. The big problem is you put a lot of food in, it just sits there and just turns to fat, sort of thing, and waste. So I was just constantly eating, and that was one of the ladies at school was just saying, "You're always eating," and I'm just like, "Yeah, I'm training," sort of thing, running 10 k's at lunchtime. But so yeah, it's just one of those things where again, it was easier over there, whereas here you're just doing so much work, sort of thing. There's not much time.
Do you find that when you're on a diet, like especially when you're dieting for weight for your fights, like? Because they always say, like, if you want to lose weight, it's better to get to that point where it's a lifestyle. They always talk about lifestyle eating. Like, when you're just used to eating that food, good healthy food.
Yeah.
You can't stand to have fizzy. Like, is it easy, like, because I know you were doing it for training purposes, for fighting. Was it easy to get to that lifestyle part of it?
It kind of was, because you knew the weight that you had to get down to, and so that was your goal. And so I find when I've got a goal or a focus, it's a lot easier to do something, rather than now I try and eat healthier, but I'm just stuff it, I'll just get a pie or something. But again, when you got focus in that, you can really, you're a lot more switched on and it does make it a lot better. But again, the eating habits that the Japanese have are just. I mean, salmon is a cheap food. Well, not cheap, but it's a hell of a lot cheaper over there than in New Zealand. So you're more likely to go up to the supermarket and buy sashimi, which is the raw fish, and then you just have a little bit of rice with that and just vegetables, and then you're good to go, sort of thing.
I guess it's easier in Japan because there's a lot of healthy organic food there, especially the rural areas.
Yeah. I mean, but again, it's just their lifestyle, the way they eat, like fish. And chicken was really cheap over there, whereas steak and chops and everything was a lot more expensive. So we would eat fish maybe twice a week, and we'd go out for sushi, every week, sort of thing like that. So again, it was just those lifestyle choices are a lot easier to make than over here.
I love that ramen.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Again, I didn't eat it much because the broth, the soup is not that healthy. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
So for me, our city was like famous for it, and I just like, sorry, it just doesn't. I don't really like it that much. But again, I'm just. Yeah.
I've been watching this documentary on Netflix about food in Japan.
Oh, cool.
So they got an episode on ramen.
Nice.
It's different because apparently they make it different in different parts of Japan.
Yeah.
Like there's one with the broth and one without the broth that you have to, you get the separate broth in the noodles.
Oh,
and you have to dip it and eat. That's another part of Japan. It was just interesting.
Yeah.
But it's a real thing over there, eh? Like there's ramen shops.
Oh, they're crazy for it, sort of thing. The one in where we lived in Kumamoto, they had individual stalls, so you didn't sit with your friend. There was like a stall because you're supposed to be focusing on the food, and so it was like real funny because you'd be like leaning over your friend's, his cubicle just to talk to him, sort of thing. But you're supposed to be like focusing on your food, and you can have different levels of spice, what kind of broth you want, like everything. It's really hardcore, so I could appreciate it. But again, for me, losing weight like that, it's just not that healthy, sort of thing, and it's just carbs, so. That's something I would just sort of avoid when I was training for something.
Yeah.
So.
Is sushi healthy? Sushi.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. But again, we would just eat fried chicken sushi. We would eat like all sorts of bad sushi. So the Japanese, the pure sushi is like with the raw fish and everything in it. But we would sort of eat a Western style. So that's what we would go for. But so when we told our friends that we went to sushi and we'd say what we had, they'd be like, "It's not really sushi," but again, it was sushi for us, and so it was super cool. Like again, and it was so cheap as well. I think it was like $1, maybe $1.20 for a plate of 3, sort of thing. So it's super good. Yeah.
Did you ever get to that smorgasbord KFC?
Yes, yeah, that I went to it twice.
Is that in the main city?
I didn't go in Tokyo. I went in Osaka.
Do they have it in all the KFC franchises?
I'm not sure. I just know there was one in Osaka, so I went to it twice, and it was amazing. I took some. I was supposed to make a YouTube stuff of it, but I never got around. Like I've still got the footage at home on my GoPro, but it was amazing. Like just. And it wasn't just Kentucky Fried Chicken. Like they had like pasta, they had like a whole lot of other kind of food there as well. But I mean, it was just. But I mean, I don't know. Like for me, it was my dream come true. And I'm like, I'd love it right now. But when you're there and it's just chicken, and you're just like, man, there's only so much KFC you can eat before you're just like, I'm done. But I mean, it was amazing. I just love taking all the skin off and just eating the skin and just chucking the chicken away.
Yeah.
That was definitely one of the highlights of my life.
Was Osaka the closest city to you guys?
No, I think probably Fukuoka was, and that's close. So we live closer to Korea, South Korea, than we did to Tokyo. So it wasn't too far away, but. Yeah, we didn't go up there. We didn't go out that much. I think when the family came home, I was there for maybe, I think about 5 months by myself, and that's when I really started to travel around the country, and I went to the different islands that were quite close to Taiwan, Okinawa, and the other ones down there. So I really started to travel around there. So that was real cool. Yeah, I would just go over there with my tent and a bag with like tins of tuna and peanuts and a bag of carrots and just take a tour around and just check everything out. It was amazing. Yeah, I'd love to go back there again. It's super safe. So that's the biggest difference between New Zealand and Japan. It's just super safe. So I just go anywhere and camp, and it was all good. And then you just no troubles at all, sort of thing.
Yeah. There was a guy that used to work for me. He's work with us at my work, and he's not there anymore. But every year he went to Japan for holiday.
Wow.
He's from China. He's a Chinese guy.
Nice.
But he just loved Japan.
Yeah.
Just go every year.
I mean, it's got, like, it's just out of it. Like, for me, the reason I lived there for so long is that it reminded me so much of New Zealand. But in New Zealand, a lot of us, we go into the nature and we go out camping and we go hiking, whereas where we lived at the bottom of Japan, not many people would do that. And so they wouldn't go out into the country, and so it was just more or less your country. You had it all to yourself, and you could just do anything. Like, it was just amazing. And then you've always got the foreign card. So if you get, don't you know you're not supposed to do that? And you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And they're like, oh, bloody hell. And then you're just like, oh, sorry. And then you just leave. So, I mean, works with the police, works with the locals. So it was always, it was super cool.
Yeah. Hopefully it wasn't that suicide forest.
No, but I had always wanted to go there. That's just below Tokyo. I had wanted to go there, but then that Jake Paul or whoever, he did his story, and I was like, oh, actually, okay, no, I don't want to do it because I'll sort of look like that. But I went up to, I think it was in Nagano, there's a ninja house. So it's got like the trapdoors and it's got all the sliding doors. So I went up there to visit, and it closed the day before because it was winter. So I was gutted. I was like, the one nerdy thing that I wanted to do, and it was finished. But I mean, I love monkeys as well, and there's like monkey islands over there. So it's just a ball. It's just so much fun.
Man, I loved those ninja movies when I was a kid.
Oh yeah.
Like, remember your favorite?
I didn't get into them that much.
You didn't?
No.
I remember the one. The one about this ninja, he dies and the spirit goes into a girl.
Oh, cool.
She becomes him, and she has to finish his mission.
Because I mean, you was the American ninja. You had the three ninjas. You had it's super cool just seeing all of their history and everything. It's just amazing. But yeah. No, it's cool. And all the samurai and everything. So, no, it's freaky to see what they do.
Did you ever read Frank Miller's Ronin?
No. Was it good?
There's a book about the samurai. I read it ages ago, but it's because I was young, and I couldn't really understand it.
Right.
It was pretty long.
Yeah.
But I was always interested in it because of the samurai and how they commit suicide after when he defeats all his enemies, no one else to defeat, so he commits suicide.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Because I know over there suicide is an option. Like, that's a legitimate option. If you can't hack society and if you can't hack your job, then that's something you can do, and it won't be frowned upon as much as in the Western side. And so that's eventually why a lot of people would throw themselves in front of the trains. And so they made a rule that if you do that, then your family has to pay for the cleanup and the inconvenience as a way to try and make people stop, from committing suicide in that way.
So you stop it by saving face again.
Yeah. Well, again,
you don't want to shame your family.
There was a bridge near our house that was called the Suicide Bridge, and they had to put like cages underneath to stop people from jumping off, sort of thing. But yeah, again, that kind of lifestyle choice is there. That if you can't handle it, then you should kill yourself, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's amazing how they accept it, and it's because when we're trying to get rid of it, because we've got a problem here with suicide, especially with Polynesians.
Yeah.
The rate is high.
Yeah.
I think in the rest of the world it's pretty high.
Really? I know New Zealand did have the youth rate was quite high. But I mean, it doesn't really surprise me in terms of, again, where like New Zealand has shifted towards the American culture of, you're seen as a success with the more money that you've got, that sort of thing, instead of the lifestyle you live and just, your personal happiness sort of thing. So, yeah, I think that's that's quite sad. And again, it relates back to me living in Japan, just seeing a lot of people, they take pride in what they're doing and that's their achievement sort of thing. And I remember one of the teachers that was retiring, and I asked my teacher what they were going on about, and he didn't take one day off in his teaching career, and he was retiring, and I just think the guy's an idiot. But at the same time, that was his thing. That's what made him keep going. And so again, that was his focus and that was his purpose, that was his achievement. And I was like, oh, well, you can't knock him for that. But when I was just like, man, I could never do that.
I read somewhere Japan has a low rate compared to the rest of the world of inequality.
Oh yeah.
You know how you just reminded me when you talked about how people see success as being rich and not like what you have in front of you, and that's sort of where inequality starts to build up, because you got a lot of people that look at social media and see these rich people, see these people, and they want to be like that, and they feel inadequate.
Yeah.
Because they've got all these influence, but it's really, if you got a family, if you've got a car, you got a roof over your head, that's the basics of what you need.
Yeah, it's real funny because when I first went to Japan, like where I lived in the village, I was always dismayed that the guy down the road, I knew his daughters, and I'd go over there for dinner, and he would come home from work, he would just have his bath, he would wife would make the dinner, and after dinner he'd just be drinking beer and alcohol until he fell asleep, woke up the next day. That's what he did. But again, it's sort of that's all there was, and that's what his life was. But at the same time, that's sort of what they only knew. So I met a lot of Japanese people that had liver failure, but at the same time they kept drinking because that's all they knew, sort of thing. So it was just, it was kind of sad, but at the same time, it's just their sort of life. But definitely, over there, the kids that's where they used to have lunch every day in the school. And so it was really cool coming back to New Zealand, and then they introduced the lunch in schools, because again, you're giving kids food sort of thing when they might not have it at home. Most Japanese kids did have it, but again, you're ensuring that everyone has, a staple diet sort of thing. Mm. So yeah,
you should listen to my podcast last, because I had a guy on. He works for Sport Waitakere, but he was involved with the school lunches.
Oh, nice.
Things. But he was telling me it went wrong. It was wrong because the food that they were giving the kids, the kids didn't like it, because it was stuff like it was Balangi food, and you're giving it to Pacific Island kids, and they're not going to eat it. So they had all these bags of food with nowhere to go.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that ended up to be another problem.
But I suppose the good thing is, if you really are hungry, you'll eat anything. And so, again, it's that tweaking everything. Like, again, it's the white mentality of, this is what will give them, not knowing who your demographic is and not actually listening to the people who are working on the ground and seeing what that is and how you can incorporate it. So that's always just New Zealand's main problem, sort of thing. They don't.
Yeah, and it seems so obvious sometimes. And I think, we talked about earlier, government spending billions of dollars on trying to, prevent or trying to solve that problem, and they're not getting it right.
No, I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but again, sometimes government agencies, they just don't get it right, sort of thing, or they don't listen to the voices on the ground, sort of thing, which is always a sad thing, but it's always happened. So I don't expect it to change, sort of thing. But it's just sad that they don't. No.
Have you seen any, since you're being a social worker now, since you started probably not long ago, eh?
No, just a year. Oh, how long? 14 months. Yeah.
Mm. So is it an uphill battle? Can you see the hill in front of you?
I think with every family and every situation is different. It is an uphill battle, but for me, it's more gaining their trust and them knowing you're not here to judge them, and then you can start to walk alongside them, and that they know that they don't have to, put on that face as if, that they don't have to put on, sort of thing. So, yeah, you got to imagine when I engage with them, they've probably had 5 other people before me, and they'd be scared of what they might do if they tell them something, if there's meth involved or marijuana. But you've just got to sort of just say, this is my goal, is this is what we're going to try and do, and I'm just here to walk alongside you, sort of thing. But again, you do have to be conscious of, if things get out of hand, you're talking about people's lives, so you can't muck around, so to speak. So you do have to, there has to be a line that no one can cross, sort of thing. And if they do cross it, then they need to know what the repercussions are of that, because you can't be putting a kid's life at risk, sort of thing. So yeah, but no, you always go into it with a positive mindset. Each day you go thinking about work, what you can do better, sort of thing, and yeah, for me it's quite cool, because I came from South Auckland, so a lot of the clients are like the people I grew up around, and so I can relate. And so the first thing I always do is I always bring a kai with me whenever I go to someone's house. You never go empty-handed, because how can I expect to ask you to do something for me when I've done nothing for you? So I always go down to the countdown, get some just basic groceries, bananas, grapes, milk, bread, and then you just go and just say, how's things? Here's some kai just in case you need it. No questions asked, sort of thing. And then you just go in and just build that rapport with them, the whanaungatanga, sort of thing. Like you got to build that up, because otherwise, again, you're just another white face asking them for something, and no one's going to respond to that. So for me, that's the biggest thing, is just building the trust in the relationship. And then after that, you just start asking them, how can we help you with this? How can we do this with you, sort of thing, to make things easier for you? And you try and word it or make them understand that this is beneficial for them. Because again, if they don't see that it's a good thing, then they won't buy into it, and there's no chance it's going to be done. So people need to really see that your intentions are the best, and it's in their best interest to do it as well, because otherwise it's not going to be good. So yeah, so a lot of people don't see meth as a bit of a problem, and so you've got to sort of get around that. Instead of saying stop meth altogether, it's how can we reduce it? Like what do you do when you're doing it? Like how can we keep children safe when you're doing meth? Is there, like people have a smoking jacket. Well, with meth, can you go into a particular room and smoke it when you're not around the kids? Who's looking after the kids at that time? So it's quite interesting that you've come to this stage, like, because I left New Zealand before meth became a problem. I remember my mate, he said he went to a tinny house and he got a tinny and they gave him this free sample. And he said,
that's how it starts.
Yeah, and he you had to break a light bulb and you smoke it off it and you stay awake for 2 days. And I thought, but that doesn't sound cool. Like, what's cool about that? And sure enough, we left, and that's when the meth problem exploded in New Zealand. I remember coming back and we were driving in New Zealand, and there was this lady just nutting off in the car by herself, and I was just laughing at her because it just looked funny. And then my family was, "Oh, be careful, because she's probably a meth head. You don't know what she's going to do." And I was just like, "Actually, yeah, you don't. I didn't realize that. Yeah, I don't know. I can't understand what she's seeing or what she's doing there. So you really do need to be careful." Yeah, so it is quite scary just to see how many people's lives have been changed by meth. And so it is just a terrible drug.
It is, and it's a big problem. You kind of forget sometimes, it's there, and especially with women who do it.
Yeah,
'cause, they get pregnant, they might still do it, and then the kids turn out bad. Like, not bad, but turn out like mentally something wrong because of the meth.
Well, I actually went back to James Cook because I had to visit a client there, and the nurse was saying that now is the time, like the 13-year-old kids and up, is when the meth babies are coming through the system. And she just said they're just erratic. You don't know what's going to happen. So you can just really see that they're really tweaked and just, it's not like the fetal alcohol kids, you know, it's it's a different aspect sort of thing. So it is quite scary at how it affects people, and there's not enough studies on it sort of thing. So you know what I mean? It's just a scary thing what it can do. But, yeah.
It's like a real pandemic, eh?
Like Walking Dead. But no, it's just terrible.
Have you got Disney Plus there?
No, I'm looking for someone who has one because I see it on my PS4 when I load it up. It's got all the cool Star Wars titles and everything. But
Yeah. The reason why I ask because there's a show on there called Dope Sick, and it's about the opioid pandemic in the States and how that started, which is bloody interesting, eh? Like, and it's not. The shocking thing about it's legal, but it's legal because these pharmaceutical companies wanted to make money, and you know how they had. There's one pharmaceutical company that's rich they got rich because they have a painkiller. But these are painkillers if you can have an operation.
Yeah.
But they said, oh no, we want a painkiller. We want to use our painkiller, like, to be sold at the pharmacy for normal pain, like headache, and it's gonna be the best pain relief ever. But they use the strong stuff that they use for the operation.
It's crazy. Eh?
Yeah.
It's also like
And people were getting addicted. People were dying.
Well, in some of the World War II books I read, the reason why Germany was so successful in their Blitzkrieg, in the start, is because all their soldiers were high on meth, and also a lot of the paratroopers.
Kamikaze?
Well, maybe not them, but I know the paratroopers that the Green Berets and everything, or the English that dropped behind the lines, then they would take all the drugs to keep them awake, sort of thing, so they could keep eluding the Germans and everything. So it's quite interesting how they just did those drugs, and it was just common. That's what you do, sort of thing. But no, it's pretty freaky.
Like, Greg, like, I gotta bring this up because I haven't laughed I haven't laughed at a TikTok in a while. And your latest TikTok.
My only TikTok.
Your only TikTok. Because you got a hell of a hilarious Facebook page.
Right.
I think your trademark photo is you with your pants down.
Yeah.
But I just want to come back to the TikTok. It's hella funny, man. And man, I had to show it to a few people.
Right.
And it's funny, man. It's funny.
Is
this something that you're gonna do on a regular?
I mean, I don't know. It's kind of hard because if you're not good looking, then it's got no right. No. I mean, it's got 3.3 million views. I've got 64,000 likes. I've got 1,600 followers now. I didn't think it would blow up, but I was just having fun with something I saw on it. So I don't know. I used to like making my Facebook clips and that. I like being creative, but with my Facebook, it's just my friends, and so I always think, well, if you know me, you know me. There's going to be no surprises. But with a public platform like TikTok, I'm just sort of like, I don't want to be judged, and I sort of see a lot of, there's some real funny comments on other people's pages, and I'm like, but if it was directed at me, I'm just like, would I be crying at night, sort of thing. But I mean, it'll be cool. I've got an idea of what to do for a follow-up TikTok for that one. And some of them I've floated it to my workers the co-workers at work, and they've said, no, don't do that. And some of them I'm like, oh, that could be cool. So I don't know. I just love it, just scrolling through and just looking at everyone's stuff and then just being like, oh, that's cool. And so that's where I got the idea, because, a lot of the ladies would like trip over the guitar and there's a piece of ham or something playing the strings, and so I thought, I wouldn't mind doing this one, sort of thing. But my biggest gripe about
well, it wasn't the original.
No.
Okay.
I'd seen like there's one, a pregnant lady, she trips over the guitar and a little hand comes out and plays the guitar.
Okay.
So
this is your version.
Yeah. I've only seen my one, because then my friends then showed me one, and the guy trips over it and he's got a sausage and the sausage plays it. So I was just like, oh, true. But again, it's just something that just caught my eye, and I just thought, oh, I'll run with that and try that. So, I mean, again, anything that takes your mind off work and that is creative, for me, is quite good fun, because I've always wanted to do my YouTube channel or something like that. But I just hate talking, when you're walking with a camera and you're trying. I just want to get to where I'm going. I don't want to be talking about a whole lot of stuff, sort of thing. So
there's people who are successful that do that, because they've sort of set the standard.
Yeah.
So they're walking around like public areas with their phone talking, and you see it on the. I watch some of these people do it. These Instagram or YouTube influencers, and they're doing that like in the middle of the mall,
right?
And then they're shouting, talking to the phone, and I'm thinking, man, I will never do that.
I mean, I'd love to have the balls to, but at the same time, I can do it in front of my on Facebook in front of my friends. Like I can do that, like in my mankini or that kind of stupid stuff. I can do that, but I don't know, in front of like a lot of like putting it on a public platform. I'm not quite there yet, but.
So this must be the experience when your TikTok came out.
Yeah, I mean,
how did you feel? Like, you had some anxiety?
So
before you hit send?
No, actually, because I was just like, oh, I don't care, like, because it's just me in it. But then, my wife had said, oh, the guitar's dirty. I was if there's always something negative, but the guitar's dirty. But it was just funny because it wasn't that big, and then it started getting bigger. And then one of the girls at work, she said, well, my friend got 1.2 million views on her one. So I was like, oh, that'll be cool to beat. Not that I can actually do anything to beat it, but it was kind of cool because you could see where it was going around the world geographically, because of the comments were like, French. So there's a lot of French comments, so you knew it was kind of blowing up in France. Then it was, somewhere in the Middle East sort of thing, because it was all Arabic and that. So it was kind of cool just tracking that. But then, I'm just trying to think, what would actually be a funny follow-up video? And, people obviously like my peers, you know what I mean? Like, people like it for that. So if you come with something different, would that turn people off, or would, what would that do? But my kids were just like, oh, Dad, you've got 1,000 followers now, you can go live. And I'm just like, why the hell would I do that? Like,
I see. So the peers are the style of the.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like,
peers will make another print somewhere.
Well, but they got to have spots on them, because that's what a lot of people had said. Like, dude, you should go to the doctor because those peers have spots on them. And so I was just like, oh, I think the peers. But I mean, some of my friends from high school, they said, I thought those were your knees. And so I was like, dude, I can see why we had early, sex education at our school if you thought those were knees, like, my gosh, you poor things. Like, yeah. So
it's funny, and certain things pull it off. One of the things is the choice of guitar music, because it had to be that.
Yeah.
Style. Well, it had to be that song.
Well, that's what everyone does it on. So my next idea.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's what they do. So. My next one was like, if a girl just says, can you play some Nirvana or something? It's like, dun, 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 dun. So I was just like, oh, maybe that'll be cool. So, yeah, I mean, for me, because I work a stressful job, like, it's cool just to daydream about stuff. And that's why I love my comic, is because, when I was teaching, when I was doing it, is that you've got some downtime, and then just suddenly that's a cool idea. And having the iPad, you just like chuck it out, and then you just start to make a cool idea in that. So again, taking your mind off work and being creative, it just opens up a whole new thing. So yeah.
That's what I love about creativity and being an artist is the fact that you're I said it before, like putting something out there for everybody, anyone to enjoy, if they can find it.
Yeah.
And that's the key, right? And if they can find it.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing is how do you get it to people? So with my comic, I think 99% of the people that supported me were from my Facebook, and that was basically from me messaging. So a lot of people, not my friends, but they contacted me and they said, how can I have a successful Kickstarter like you? And I was like, dude, like I just harassed all my friends and just asked them to buy the comic, and that was basically it. They were, because again, they were friends or people I knew, so again, they were more than happy to help, and I was, happy that they did help me, sort of thing. So, for me, it was just really cool, just seeing people that I wasn't necessarily as close with, but because it was something that they thought was cool, they supported me, sort of thing. So yeah, it was just pretty cool. And then your good friends and family that had no choice, you just keep harassing them, and then they would just eventually they would just buy it, sort of thing. Not necessarily read it, but at the same time it looks good on the Kickstarter platform that it's gaining traction, sort of thing. But yeah, so no, I mean it takes us such a big load of work, but yeah, it was cool.
How do you write a comic book? Is it like, because you're gonna have in your mind what each of the bars look, or what are they called, the
Panels.
the panels look like in your head. So how do you like? It's not like writing a book.
Well, it is really hard, because depending on your relationship with the artist and how much you trust them,
I mean, do you have to engage with the artist while you're writing, or can you write it and then look for an artist after you've written it?
Oh yeah, so you should have your story written out, but then how they draw it is kind of different. So like you can, so with my artist now, I built up a relationship that I could give him the page of a story, and then he would decide how he would break it down into panels. Right. But if there was a specific thing that you wanted to show, then you would have to write it in. This shot is from behind looking down, and we can see the man, he's dead on the ground, and the main guy, is standing over him with a sword. The sword is dripping, and he's holding up his fist, and so you have to do that.
Describe the scene.
Yeah, and then the artist will read it, and then he would sketch it out, and then he'd send it to you, and then you'd say, oh yeah, but you need to change this or this a little bit, and then he'd put that in.
Okay, so all you're doing is, when you write the story, you're actually describing the scene as well, and then you just go back and forth with the artist.
Yeah.
How to do the panels.
But I mean, at the same time, you can write. Basically, this scene is in the arena. Kurt is running from one person to another. He's hacking them and dodging their sword blows, and the last panel will he comes up against the main protagonist, sort of thing, like the main guy he's going to fight. And then again, based on what your artist's thinking, what you're thinking, it could be two different things, so you've got to sort of be prepared. And that's where that working relationship is, like, but we need this and this and this picture, and then the guy knows, and then he'll come back. So, I mean, when I first started, and probably I still do it now, sometimes you have, Kurt, the guy's catching a ball and then he's throwing it. Well, you can't catch a ball and throw it in the same picture, because it's two actions. So you sort of, there's heaps of trial and error that you have to go through. And again, when you've worked up that relationship with the guy, it makes it really cool.
Have you looked into like screenplay, how to write a screenplay? Because it's similar, eh?
Yeah, I'd say so. Because I mean, again, working on comics, then it's more or less. I mean, if you think about it, when people do movies, they do a storyboard. And basically, the storyboard is a comic, and it's just outlining the main key points that are happening, and to what shots you want. So. I've always wanted to write write a movie or like a comedy movie sort of thing. Because I mean, yeah, you look at again, New Zealand is a, and our culture is a lot different, so it'll be cool to do it, sort of thing. But again, we have that tall poppy syndrome where, we don't really like to see each other succeed, sort of thing. So it is kind of hard, but yeah, that's sort of one of my dreams is to write a short movie or something like that and then do it.
Have you looked into the comic book industry in New Zealand? Like, how are we compared to the rest of the world, and do we have one, or do we? I know we got the Armageddon convention, but it's not really a comic book based one. It's more gaming.
Yeah.
Now we've had ones in the past.
Oh, okay.
And I think, but as the years go by, it's been more into gaming and films.
I mean, I'm on the there's a Facebook page for New Zealand comics, and I think those people there, I'm not that active in it. I just like to, I'm in the shadows sort of thing, but a lot of them do have a lot of history. I think maybe one of the guys from Mark 1, he's on it, and because I think he owns a shop in Hamilton now, I'm not too sure, but so some of them will post up different pages from back in the days, and people who had done comics and everything, which is really cool to see. But again, for me, it just outlines that there's never been a big role in New Zealand in terms of, because again, I'm having to look for where can I get my comic published in New Zealand. It's quite hard to find, like, what can I do. I would love to write a comic about Māori myths and legends, sort of thing, because again, you've got kids who aren't really interested in reading. You give them a comic, if they can't read, they'll be just looking at the pictures, but at the same time it should spark some interest in reading or something. So I mean, yeah, that'll be amazing.
Yeah. Because even when you say like writing writing a screenplay for a film, like a short film or something like that might be the way to go, because there's a lot of funding going on for New Zealand on there, and when I think about a graphic novel, like when I first realized that it doesn't have to be a graphic novel doesn't have to be about a superhero, or it can be any story you want. Like, for instance, the movie Road to Perdition.
Oh, yeah.
That was a graphic novel, and that's just normal people.
Right.
It was like a hitman and a son, and that was a graphic novel at first, and it wasn't like a superhero thing. It was just something based in the Depression era in America. But that was probably the first time I realized you could write a graphic novel about anything, any story you want, and to have those storyboards already there for the film. If you get picked up by a movie maker, it's half the work's already done.
I mean, it would be cool. I went to the New Zealand short movie festival, I think, when I was back a few years ago, and it was cool because again, you sit there and you're like, this is awesome, but but you judge yourself and you're like, oh, I reckon I could do a bit better than this, sort of thing. But again, if you don't have all that equipment around you, it makes it hard. But again, that kind of stuff inspires me. Like, how can I do something as good or better than this? And it's opportunity. Like, do you get that opportunity? But again, I'd love to build a community around, like you get a few guys in a room and you talk about the stories that you grew up in, and from that you get some, pretty cool stories, and then, you choose the funny ones out of that. I don't know, there was a show way back in the early 2000s called Freaks and Geeks, and that was basically the writer, his life story about growing up, and it was in there, like all the funny things that happened. So I mean, in terms of New Zealand culture, like you could come up with some real funny stories and then just turn it into like you said, a screenplay, and it'd be it'd be cool.
Because that has been the trend in Hollywood. A lot of movies like Oblivion, Tom Cruise.
Oh yeah,
the movie Oblivion, that was a graphic novel first, and Road to Perdition was another one. So there have been like movies that come from, because like I said, the storyboard's already there.
Yeah, like Walking Dead.
The Walking Dead is a comic book.
I mean, I love the comic book. Like, that comic book is amazing.
I can't believe that show's still going.
Well, I mean, I fell off it after the second season.
Jumped the shark ages ago.
Yeah. I mean, but the comic was just like there's so much more graphic stuff they can show and do that made it really awesome. So it was cool. But I mean, again, fair call. It's a new genre sort of thing, but now it's been hashed to death. But again, yeah, it's super cool.
I think my problem was the moment I thought I jumped the shark on that program was they were just in Atlanta for too long.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I might be in the same street, in the same forest. They're always walking past.
I hate it when they've got one little story arc and they stretch it out for the whole show sort of thing.
Okay.
So for me, I jumped the shark, and I think it was season 2 when they were on the farm, and there was like a slug zombie that was in the well, and they were trying to figure out how to get it out to get the water, and eventually they pulled it out and it ripped it in half, and I was just like, really, the whole show was... I was just like, nah, I'm done, sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's super cool. I had a friend in Japan, an American guy, and he loved zombie stuff, and he was a writer for a novel, and he wrote a few novels on zombies. And when I wrote my comic, I tried not to watch any movies because I didn't want to be influenced by that, and I didn't want people to be like, oh, that's just like this, and so I try to keep it all original. So I try to keep purposefully not looking at movies and to write my stories so to be original, whereas he was the other way around. He would look at those zombie genres and he would look at what worked, and then he would put it into his book and change it enough so it was deemed original. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, again, yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's funny you said that because I've heard that before. There's, I don't know if you know Trey Skrilla.
No.
He's like a guy out west. He does all these Instagram skits. He's like funny as, but he does little serious videos about how he gets creative, how he does it, and he said the same thing.
Oh,
because he had a question. Someone asked him, "Oh, so do you look at other skits?" And he goes, "Nah, I don't, because I don't want to look at it and influence my idea for my skit."
Yeah.
Because I want to be original.
Yeah.
That's what he said. But then I didn't. Okay, I got it. But I thought, okay, but you gotta actually know what's out there. So maybe you don't repeat it, or you can make it better.
Yeah.
How do you know how to make it better if you don't see it?
Yeah. Well, that was just like my TikTok video, like all the girls do it.
Yeah.
And then I just thought, well, this is funny, but this is how I would do it. And so I did it. And so some of the people's comments on it were like, wasn't this a trend 1 or 2 years ago? And I was like, oh, that could be true. But for me, this is what's funny. This is what makes me laugh. So this is what made me laugh when I did it. So that was kind of like, oh, well, that's all well and good if it was a trend 1 or 2 years ago, but this is what I'm interested, sort of thing, and judging by the people who viewed it, it's something that they liked as well. So I was like, oh, okay, Piers on a guitar is something that's pretty good.
But I think that's the secret to art. I mean, it's all copied. Everything's copied. The secret is how can you make it better?
Well, that was really interesting because again, James Cook, terrible time. No, it was cool. And recently a girl had, she got given money, funding from the school to do like a PTA, but she didn't want to do a PTA for the school. So she just had We Are James Cook. And so she just invited people to come down and have a feed and have a raffle sort of thing. No money, but you can win prizes. And she just wanted it to be there. And she said she was inspired because she went to an art, an art gallery, and it had all these pictures, and she walked through and it was just like a line on a piece of paper. It was just like some paint that was splashed on a canvas, and she just thought, this is really crap, sort of thing. And at the end it had a little plaque that had said, you might have thought that all of this was really stupid art. The only difference is I did it and displayed it compared to you who did nothing. So again, it was saying, they did it, they put it out there. Might be crap, you could do better, but they did it. So that was sort of like that challenge to people, like, well, put your money where your mouth is and show me what you can do. So
yeah, and that's a good thing. That's what I think. That's what builds creativity.
Yeah. I mean, what can you do? Can you do it better? Like, I mean, Can you get your mates together? And again, you know, bringing that community, like your friends together, maybe one of those friends was having a hard time, and you bringing him together shows him that, you know, people do care, and that, you know, now he's part of your little community, your little group. It's like a support thing. So again, you know, you don't know how you touch people's lives. Like that girl that reached out to me, that her mum that I went to school with, that, you know, that was something that she had thought about, you know, my comics sort of thing. So for her to do that was really cool. So again, yeah, you don't know, you know, what you're doing, like people listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, if it might be relevant to them or it might not be. But again, you know, that's their choice to keep listening or to switch off. So it's
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's just really cool.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
It's all like the argument between freedom of speech and, you know, like, and cancel culture. You know,
Yeah.
like you won't know until it's out there. How can you argue something if there's nothing out there to argue about?
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you're not saying anything detrimental against people. You're not telling them not to do this or this. You just this is your opinion, and it's not designed to hurt anyone or offend anyone. But again, this is just what you're saying, sort of thing, which is the best thing.
Yeah, it's like the marketplace of ideas.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It gets, if it's a bad idea, it's not going to go far.
Well,
if it's out there, if it's a bad idea, it's not going to go far because it'll be just drowned in the better ideas.
Well, my idea that I really wanted to do was to set up a TikTok Auckland page, and if you needed to get people together to do a skit or something, like a crowd, then you could just chuck it up there, and then you know, you just see like everyone Friday meet at Pars Park, 7:30, and we're going to be doing this. If this sounds like something you would want to do, come on down. And again, you build that culture. But
You should do it.
Yeah,
sounds good.
I know, but then in my line of work, again, you get a lot of predators. So you're like, oh, come meet me on the beach in the park where no one can see you. It's like, holy shit. So again, you know, I'm living that life sort of thing. Like, you got to be aware. So just wear your mankini. But yeah, I know. Like, building that culture would be cool. Again, building a community would be so much fun. Because again, you know, just from looking at TikTok, like, you've got so many creative people there. Again, you know, you give my kids now a phone and put them in front of it, they can do their dancing. They're not shy. I remember for my Kickstarter video, it took me so many shots to get, like 5 or 6 years ago, because, you know, I just wasn't used to seeing myself on video, hearing myself speak. And so, you know, my kids now are just like boom, 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 boom. So, damn it. And all the technology is a lot easier now. Like, you have to be a real nerd to know how to edit stuff and everything. And now, you know, kids just doing it on the phones. I'm actually a bit pissed off. But no, it's cool.
So what's happening? So what's happening with the comic book? Like, when's 3 coming out?
Chaosphere.
Chaosphere. I was going to say catastrophe.
Yeah, well, there's a catastrophe at the moment.
Catastrophe.
So at the moment, I'm just trying to find a publisher. I mean, again, I don't have much motivation. Like, at my level isn't that good. So I sent an email off to one person, and they sort of were like, oh, and then I was like, oh, well, that's negative, so I'm not going to do it. So it's all the artwork's done. I've just got to put the speech bubbles in, and then just get it sort of like, make sure people critique it and say, oh, that's good, or anything you need to tweak. But it's more or less, it's I just need to get it published and then get around to doing a Kickstarter. The other thing, though, the big problem is, when I lived in Japan, the Japan shipping was really cheap. So it only costs maybe $2, $3 to send it anywhere in the world. Whereas from New Zealand, like, it's a shitload of money just to send it anywhere outside of New Zealand. So I sort of got to think about that. Like, if you say my comic is $10 to buy, but then there's a $20 shipping charge, I mean, $30. Like, for me, I wouldn't buy it. So I've got to really do my homework on how much the pricing would be and how I can make it cheaper, because that's something that I would like to do. But
because there's a Marvel DC going digital now.
I suppose so, but I mean, for me, I love the feel of comics. Like I don't like reading stuff on my phone. Like Kickstarters I've supported, like they send you to digital. But I mean, for me, I'm old school and I'm the minority. I would rather have the comic in my hands and you turn the page and you're looking at it, sort of thing. I mean, digital's still cool, but I don't know. For me, just that. It's just something that I would rather have as a physical copy, sort of thing. So that's always been the cool thing. But yeah.
And the story, is it you've got a beginning and end, or is it one of these ongoing?
It's
Walking Dead.
Yeah.
6,
sort of
12,
like see how
20
it goes.
seasons.
I mean, I've got the basic idea is the start. Yeah, it's funny because when people say, "Oh, try break it down into like 3 paragraphs what your story's about," and you're just like, "Oh," you just start rambling on and on and on. But it's more or less about it's in the future, and there's a black hole, and around the black hole there's gas that's been mined, and it's kind of dangerous, and so X guys who've been in the war, that's their job to do that. Because every now and again, ships get sucked into the black hole and they get lost forever. But the main star, or the main hero of the book, he started having these bad dreams, flash forwards, I call them. And he's gone to see the psychologist about it. And they tell him to take medicine to try stop him from having these dreams. And it sort of plays on a little bit of the Aborigine world of like these are dreams in the future sort of thing, and by the organization trying to make him take drugs, stopping him from seeing what he can see in the future, and kind of like that. And so yeah, it's just around about that. And basically the ex people who have been to war, most of them are Pacific Islander and Maori, and they live in like the sort of like third world people. They served the country, but they came back to nothing. And it reminded me, or I tried to emphasize, that's what happened to the Māori. They went and fought the white man's war in World War II, but they came back to nothing. Whereas, the Europeans, New Zealanders that came back, they got, this and that, farms and everything, but the Māori were shafted sort of thing. So that's sort of what I try to emphasize in that as well. And, but through their culture, they're still rich in what they do. But yeah, so it's sort of, I try and mix that all in and have a story, and there's murder and everything. So, and the main thing is Chaosphere is like a game, so it's kind of like rugby with a ball. You've got to get into a goal.
That's right.
But they've evolved that now. If you hit their armor, if you goes down to 0 hit points, then that part of the armor doesn't work. So it's like safety. So that's how they don't get hurt, sort of thing. So yeah, so it's kind of a cool thing for this team that are bit of renegades, losers, sort of thing, but they're really good at this game, and that's their way of getting back at the upper class, sort of thing. So yeah, I think there's a lot of underlying themes in there based on my childhood and me growing up, sort of thing. So it's been really cool just to put pen on paper, sort of thing, to write it, and then
you said you're a science fiction fan. What are some of the influences that helped you write these stories?
I suppose, you always go back to Star Wars. Empire Strikes Back is one of the first movies I remember. I just remember growing up on the original Dune movie. That was awesome. Then
I saw that recently. I thought it was crap.
I
didn't think it was crap back then when I watched it.
No. Oh, did you watch the original?
Yeah. Ages ago. But it wasn't that famous because, I don't know, I think there was better films like Star Wars.
Well, it was funny because I watched that every day, like over a certain period on video, and then I watched the new version, and I didn't think it was anything great. Compared to 40 years ago, 30 years ago, and this is what they came out with. I was like, well, it's not too much different. But again, Krull, remember Krull when they used
I love Krull.
Used to throw the little shooting star thing and used to chop his head.
I saw that, but I remember seeing that in the movies because my dad, he took me to the movies to watch Superman 3.
Yeah.
Superman 3 just came out, and it was sold out. I remember crying so that I couldn't see Superman. And my dad was like, "Oh, no, we'll go see this one Crow." I don't want to see that stupid movie. I want to see Superman. But I came out, man, loving that movie.
Right.
So it was me.
I still remember seeing the previews for it and just thought it looked wicked. And then now I watched it again a few years ago, and it just was the stupidest thing. Like the story didn't go how it was supposed to go, and I was just. But again, for me, that's inspiration. That something that bad, but it influenced me when I was young, and couldn't put two to two together. But it just looked awesome. That I was like, that was cool. So again. I remember having a conversation with my friend about my comic. I was like, man, I wonder if Image will pick it up. Oh, I wonder. And he's like, it's not that good, Greg. And I was like, what are you talking about? But again, it was, I don't know, it was something cool that I had aimed so high that's my expectations. But again, if it didn't reach it, I mean, as long as you're making someone happy, then it's succeeded. And as long as you made enough money that you're not you're breaking the bank, you're not losing. But
or even if for me, I would be proud and happy that I actually made a comic book.
Yeah.
I've been reading comic books all my life from America, and in my hand, this is one I just made myself, and it's got the staples in there. It's got everything comic book is. And
well, the funny thing is before I had done the comic, I think I had maybe 8 pages done. And it was Christmas, and my sister-in-law, her Christmas present to me was she had made she had sent it to like a photo book or something, so she got it printed into a little comic. It was just 8 pages, but for me that was the original comic. It wasn't finished, but it was just the first time I'd ever had my comic in my hands. Yeah. And I think one of my friends from school, Christian McNevin, he had worked on, he did a cover for X Factor. Back in the days, because he's a graphic artist, and so he did the.
He actually did the cover for
X Factor for Marvel. Yeah.
Do you know what number?
No, sorry, Christian. I don't think it's your best work, but it was still. And for me, that was. I have never been so proud that my friend that I was at school with, his comic. He did the work for Marvel, and he did the cover for number 3 for Chaosphere. So,
okay.
So when but again, it's been like years, like 4 years since he did it, and he's like, when is that comic coming out, Greg? I'm like, soon. But it's super cool that he did it. But again, like he actually drew for Marvel, so.
Yeah, the reason why I asked the number because you can actually go online and look for it.
Yeah, I'll show you the. It's just a quick hop, skipping away, but yeah, it's just amazing. That he, that's someone from New Zealand.
Because I'm interested to see which, was it when X Factor was the original X-Men, or was it the new?
No, I think it was more the new one.
Of Havoc and Lorna Dane.
Yeah. X Nation, I think it's called. So that's the cover there. But that was our dream at high school, to draw or work for Marvel. And so for him to actually get that done, like it was just like, holy cow sort of thing. Like that's just awesome. I think I'll have a look and see if he did one. I think I'll see if he's got it for my... Oh yeah, so that's the cover that he did for number 3.
All right, oh nice.
So when that finally comes out,
Chaosphere.
Yeah. So it's awesome. It's just so much fun to be able to just put something down on paper and it just comes out.
Mm.
Again, if I was good at drawing, I'd be able to do it myself, my schedule. But again, you're working with people and it can take them up to a week to do one page. So then for a 32-page comic, you're looking at 32 weeks, which is almost a year. So to say the next comic will come out next year, people, it's a bit disheartening sort of thing. But again, if you can't pay big bucks, you can't get people to be doing it. How they've got to, of course, better money comes in, they're going to be doing that job first. Your one has the lower paying jobs have to wait, sort of thing. So my dream was always to win the lotto and then I would get Art Adams. I don't know if you ever knew him, but he drew X-Men in that. He drew the baby X-Men, but my dream was to get him to do my art sort of thing. That would just blow my mind. So yeah, that'd be awesome.
Wow. Yeah, like, man.
Imagine Jim Lee drawing your comic, like.
I follow him on Instagram.
Oh yeah,
And it's like he's a normal guy.
yeah, right.
He doesn't put stuff on his art
Yeah.
on his Instagram. It's just him and his family and just normal average guy. But man, he's a superstar.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I follow.
He's the CEO of DC now, eh?
Oh really?
Well, he's up there in DC.
Wicked.
He's like one of the main editors.
I follow Eric Larson. He did
yeah.
Savage Dragon. I follow him on Twitter, and again, he's just a normal guy, but he calls out different artists and that, which is cool. And
He's famous for Spider-Man giving him the wink.
oh, okay.
Giving the winky eye.
He's yeah. I mean, I always remember Todd McFarlane. Like he just took Spider-Man with his webs, just the way he did it, just took it to the next level, sort of thing. So yeah, it's just amazing, just seeing what they do, and just yeah, it's just awesome.
Who was one of your best writers for comics? Do you remember?
No, to be honest, I mean, I never liked Batman, but there was a short 6-part series when he goes into the mental hospital.
Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, I think that's it. I really love that. Like the writing was amazing on that.
I think that was Alan Moore.
Yes, I think so.
I think. Didn't he do Watchmen?
I'm not
Was Alan
sure.
Moore that did Watchmen? Or?
Yeah.
He's a British writer.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure, but it just you know, Batman, Superman were always cliched for me. Like they were, it just, I don't know, it just something about them. But that the way that the guy wrote it was just amazing. So it was just really cool.
Yeah, Frank Miller's been one of my favorites. He's pretty dark
Ah,
his stories.
yeah.
And he loves his It's funny because what's the one? 300.
Oh, okay.
300. Like in you know how they get killed? They go through that little gap in the cliffs and they get shot. Well, he has that same scenario in nearly all his stories. Like that happens in Ronin.
Ah, yeah.
And it also happens somewhere else, Sin City. Yeah, which is you can just take it from there.
It's funny, eh? But no, there's some.
But he was the guy that really put Batman on the map in the 80s. After all the the TV show Batman with the Robin and
the campy style,
the campy stuff.
Yeah.
I think when Frank Miller took over the comic, he really put it. He's the one that did the Dark Knight.
Oh yeah,
the Dark Knight Returns in year 1. Then he went over to Marvel and did the Daredevil and made Daredevil.
Yeah.
Like Daredevil was like the Marvel's version of Batman.
Yeah.
And he did that story with Kingpin. This was pretty.
No, there's so many. I mean, whoever's sitting on the Marvel vault of comics, they just got they can just pick and choose anything. Like, yeah, it's amazing. I really like New Mutants, the comic, like like the whole X-Men family sort of. That was just amazing.
I didn't really like the movies. They didn't really reflect what the comic.
I never watched. To be honest, I haven't watched nearly any Marvel movies because I had to go through the trauma of being a geek at school with my comics, and now for it to become popular, I'm just like, no man. So to be honest, I've only watched Spider-Man 1, maybe X-Men 2, all the others. I'm just like,
But the whole Marvel going into the movie realm is very interesting because in the beginning, a lot of these Marvel characters were owned by different studios. Different studios had the rights to different characters. So you had 20th Century Fox that owned Fantastic Four and X-Men, so they could only use them.
Yeah.
Then you had Universal, who had Hulk and Namor, and then you had Sony, who owned Spider-Man, all the Spider-Man's characters, and then you had Disney, who just bought, who set up Marvel Studios, but they only had Captain America, Iron Man, and these are unknown, not well known Marvel characters. So that's what they had to deal with. They didn't have Spider-Man. They didn't have X-Men, which were killing the comic book scene.
Right.
They were the main storylines, and if you picked up a Marvel comic, you go to X-Men.
Yeah.
All that, but what Disney did manage to make these characters what they had into into these franchises, made them popular. Iron Man, like everyone knows Iron Man now.
Yeah.
Thor.
Yeah.
Captain America.
It's funny because you just need that good writing, and that's what makes people interested, sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's what they had.
Right.
So after a while, accumulated a lot of money. They bought 20th Century Fox. That means they own X-Men.
Right.
X-Men comes in. They buy Incredible Hulk from Universal. Incredible Hulk comes in. Sony doesn't want any part of it. They said, nah, you're not having any Spider-Man. We're going to do our own movies. You guys do your own stuff. Until, they made a deal. So Spider-Man said, we'll buy Spider-Man. We'll give you him as a loan. So that's why you got Spider-Man in the Marvel universe.
Okay.
Because it's just a loan from Sony. And that's why when you see these other movies like Morbius. Have you seen the Morbius movie that just came out?
No.
So Morbius, it's not affiliated with Disney. It's Sony. And the Venom movie.
Oh yeah.
They had the Venom movie. It's not Disney. It's Sony. So these storylines have got nothing to do with
okay.
over here, because it's them, because they don't want to. Sony has the rights and they don't want to give that up. The problem is they're writing this shit.
Right.
They're writing shit. 20th Century Fox writing was shit. That's why X-Men movies were shit. Disney on the other hand, different story.
It's funny how they got it down pat.
They got it down pat and it's working. So they're screaming to own everything, because hey, you guys are shit. Look at us. We're making all the money here.
Right.
So that's the reason why you see Spider-Man in the Marvel universe, because they've Sony can see you guys are making all the money. We'll loan you Spider-Man. We'll get a share of that money if you use our character.
Right.
So that's all this politics going on.
It's pretty freaky, eh?
Yeah.
I always like how Stan Lee was always in the cameos for the different movies and that.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh wow.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I'm kind of glad Disney has X-Men, so they can start doing X-Men stuff with them.
I mean, it'll be cool because again, you've got Excalibur, which I loved. You just got such a X factor. It'll be wicked. Just all the dynamics that they can do, and they've already got a storyline. Like the story's already been written for them, sort of thing. So they can just tweak it to the new generation and everything. It'll be amazing.
Well, they've done something else interesting too, because how I said Sony and Disney are separate. All this multi-universe stuff that they're doing. This multi-universe storyline has allowed Sony to have now their Spider-Mans in different universes. I had Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man and Tobey Maguire as the first Spider-Man. Now they've brought their universes into.
That's cool, eh?
So now they can make more movies, Spider-Man movies. So now Sony can make Spider-Man movies as well, as because they're different universes.
Money talks.
It's
cool.
Yeah, it's interesting.
No, it's awesome.
But man, Greg, man, we did 2 hours and a half.
Oh, look at that, eh? You're right. It was just easy.
Hey man, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it, brother.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. I hope it's good for people to listen to, and any feedback's always good. So yeah.
Yeah, man. No, it's been good and cool to nerd out with you with comics and pop culture and stuff. And I'm looking forward to reading part 3.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just need inspiration, so anyone can just jump online and have a look. It's on.
So yeah, where can people find?
I've got it on 2 free sites. It's called Comic Fury, and the other one is Tapas, Tapas. And then if you just search for Chaosphere, it should come up, and then just have a read, leave a comment or something like that. Yeah, it's always good to hear feedback, and it's all good.
So people can get the 1, 2, and 3.
Number 1 and part of number 2, I believe. So I was uploading like page by page, but I've dropped off it again. But most of the first 2 comics are up online, so they can just have a look at it and just let me know what they think. So yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks, Greg.
Nope.
Bye.